Dude Food. One of the things we like to do is share easy recipes that are big on flavor. It's always important, but it's especially important when you have to cook for a crowd. Now, I've had a few occasions where I've had to learn how to cook for a crowd, and here are some of the things that I've learned, some of the tips I've picked up along the way. Number one, you want a recipe that you can make ahead, because when your friends and guests are coming over, you want to be able to greet them and interact with them and not stuck in the kitchen messing with last minute details. And the other thing you want is a recipe that's easy to double or triple or to make more food with just as much work. Now, for instance, if you had some folks over for breakfast and you're making omelets, okay, well, that's a pretty, it takes a lot of attention at the stove, right? So if you're doing 1 or 2 or 3 of those, that's fine. But if you're having 8 or 10 people over, you would want to switch to a different approach. You would probably do like a breakfast casserole or something like that. Well, today's recipe is great for a crowd. It's great for your family. It's great if you're making it just for you. This is shredded balsamic beef, and it is amazing. All right. So let's start out by talking about the ingredients. Let's talk about, first of all, the cut of meat. A lot of people aren't super familiar with their cuts of meat, and you should learn them. This is a beef chuck roast. The chuck roast comes from the shoulder of the animal. It's got a lot of fat and marbling in it. You see all these white things in here. That fat translates to flavor. And if you cook this low and slow in a moist environment, what happens is all those fibers just kind of relax and that fat melts and it just falls apart and it becomes unctuous and delicious. But in addition to the meat, what we're going to do is we're going to add some flavor components that are really going to accentuate that beefy flavor. And the star of the show is balsamic vinegar. Let's talk about balsamic vinegar a little bit. Now, you can pick up balsamic vinegar in your grocery store, but if you buy like a $7 bottle that's about this size, it is just going to be awful. I think in balsamic vinegar, you ought to spring for the good stuff. My sister got me a bottle just like this for a gift a couple of years ago, and I actually just finished going through it. Now, it is not cheap. It's about $40 including shipping, but this product from VeniceOliveOil.com, they're a producer local here in Florida, and I don't have any kind of arrangements with them or whatever. Although Venice Olive Oil, if you want to sponsor Dude Food, let's have a conversation. I'd love that. But this is such a delicious product, syrupy and sweet, and so much better than supermarket balsamic vinegar. And this is actually the biggest bottle it comes in. You can get smaller bottles too if you're interested in that. But you want the good stuff. About a quarter cup of this is going to make a huge difference in that beefy flavor. Another thing that amps up beefy flavor is soy sauce. You always want to get low sodium soy sauce, but particularly for this recipe, because at the end we're going to reduce the sauce down, and if you have too much salt in it, that sauce will get too salty. So we're going to use a little low sodium soy sauce. For our liquid, we're going to do this in a slow cooker. In our liquid, we want to use chicken broth, and that might be slightly counterintuitive. You might think that we'd want to use beef broth, but actually sometimes if you use beef broth to do slow cooking with beef, there's a sort of tinny metallic flavor that can come out in prepared broths. And the easy way around that is to use chicken broth, and again, this is a reduced sodium product, which is a great choice for this recipe. And then I have the soy sauce here. We're also going to use some chopped garlic, some red chili flakes, and a little bit of honey. So the first thing that I want to do is I really want to pat this dry. Now, here's the thing. When you read this recipe, you could just take all the ingredients and then just dump them in the slow cooker and set it for 8 hours on low, and you'd have a pretty good product. But I want to help you do 2 things that are pretty easy to do that are going to amp up the flavor and the results you're going to get really significantly. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to season and then get a nice sear on this meat before we put it on the slow cooker. All right, let's get a good sear on this meat. The first thing we're going to do is just salt and pepper it, and on both sides. We don't want to use too heavy of a hand with the salt because of what we'll do toward the end, but don't be afraid of Put a little bit on there. Yeah, there we go. And heating right here, I have a cast iron pan. Cast iron pans are great for getting a good sear on meat because they really hold heat really well. This one has been around in my family for a long time. This actually belonged to my grandmother. And so it's getting good and hot, and so I'm going to add a little olive oil to this so that that heat gets good conduction. And then I just want that oil to be at the smoking point. So we'll let that heat up for just a second. And once it starts giving off wisps of smoke, I'll know that it's ready for a sear. Here comes that smoke. So in goes the roast. I've got that on medium-high heat. Now, resist the temptation to mess with it. Once you get it in there, leave it alone. Do not touch it. I'm going to start a 3-minute timer, and then we're going to check it. All right, just a few seconds left on this first side. Now notice this pan is really smoking. Don't be afraid of that. That smoke means flavor, and that's what you want. Here it comes. Oh yeah. See that beautiful sear? We're going to turn it over. Restart the timer. Same thing on the second side. Looking for that deep, beautiful golden brown sear. Let's check it. 2, 1. There's the timer. Yes, that is exactly what we want. So I'm going to set this aside, turn off my timer, and then there's a lot of flavor in that pan, so we're going to get that flavor out. Just a tiny bit of olive oil, and then I'm going to throw in the garlic and bloom those garlic oils in that oil. I'm going to turn that heat way down because we don't need very much. And also the red pepper flakes. So that's 4 cloves of garlic and about a half a teaspoon of red pepper flakes. And just 30 seconds, we'll get those oils out and kind of distributed. Whew! There comes the aroma. As soon as that hits you, you know it's ready. So I'm going to add a half a cup of that chicken broth and we'll deglaze the pan. The glazing just means you put some liquid in. Man, look at that. Look at that. You put some liquid in there and then you scrape the bottom of the pan, and that gets all those brown crusty bits with their flavor up, and then that's going to go right into the slow cooker. Awesome. The garlic and the red peppers, and we're going to put those in the slow cooker. I'm using an Instant Pot, but we're not going to use the famous pressure cooker function of it. We're just going to use the slow cooking function, so any crock pot will work just fine for this. Okay, and then I'm going to just slide that meat straight in there. Now, if your crock pot is too narrow, you can just cut that beef in half or whatever. We're going to shred it at the end, so the shapes don't matter. You can do that. Now, in addition to that, we're going to bump that up with a couple tablespoons of soy sauce, which I'm just going to pour in there, and then a 1/4 cup of this awesome, amazing balsamic vinegar. I don't know if you can see how syrupy and gorgeous that is. Just pour that all over. And then our final ingredient is about a tablespoon of honey, and I'm just going to drizzle that in over the top. Yes, I'm eyeballing it. That is scientifically exactly 1 tablespoon. Thank you very much. And we're going to close it in. And I'm going to set the slow cooker on low for 8 hours. All right, this beef's been in the crock pot for 8 hours. Let's see what it looks like. Oh my goodness, take a look at that. See how rich that caramelization is on top? So good. All right, our next step is let's get this beef out, and I'm going to put it in this glass dish where I'm going to shred it here in just a minute using a couple of forks. But the second major step that we're going to take to really amp up this flavor is we're going to take all this gorgeous cooking liquid and I'm going to just strain it into here, get all those solids out of it. Now, you could just pour this liquid over the beef and just eat it that way, but we're going to take it just the next level, and what we're going to do is we're going to put this liquid on the stove and we're going to reduce it down to intensify that flavor so it has a nice syrupy consistency and do a couple finishing notes that is really going to take this to the next level. So I'm going to shred the beef and then we're going to reduce the sauce. Alright, so I'm just going to put this sauce in this skillet. We're going to bring this up to the boil until it starts to turn syrupy. So that'll take a few minutes. I'm going to add just a tiny bit more of that balsamic vinegar for a fresh acidic note at the end. There we go. Alright, let's pour this off. Oh my goodness. Be sure you get all of that. That is all pure flavor. And then I'm just going to taste it in case I need to correct the seasoning. Oh, that's great. That's great. All right, friends, it's tasting time. I have here with me my friend Ross. Ross works with me at Family Church. He's the technical wizard, and I run the leadership development side. We share a love of Star Wars.
Amen. Absolutely.
And meat.
Amen.
And meat. So
two ways to my heart.
Yeah, that's right. So I've got this sauce here, and so I'm just going to drizzle this all over this beef. Oh my goodness. You don't even know. And if you want, you can reserve just a little bit for a touch at the end. So also I'm going to kind of combine this here, and then I'm going to serve up a little bit for you. Oh my goodness. I have rice on the plate. This is such a flexible dish. You could serve this with rice. You could serve it with mashed potatoes. You could serve it with pasta. As a matter of fact, if you wanted, when you're finishing this sauce, you could drop in some half and half and go sort of for that creamed beef kind of look. That would be amazing. Lots of things you could do. If you make a big batch of this, you could put it on little hot dinner roll for sandwiches later. Doesn't that sound good?
Yes.
Or if you're trying to do the keto thing, you could just serve it with a big salad or with some roasted vegetables like Brussels sprouts and carrots would be really good. All right, let me stop talking so we can taste. So I'm just going to give you another little drizzle of that sauce just for good measure. Oh my goodness.
All right.
All right, let's taste it.
A little bit with the rice. Yes.
What do you think?
Amazing.
Such a flexible and easy dish. So delicious and unctuous. It's got a little bit of that sweetness. That balsamic vinegar really punches up that beefy flavor. And the great thing is the slow cooker does all the work for you. What do you think? You want to make this for your next Star Wars party?
I'm going to stay here quiet and eat.
Yeah.
You keep talking.
That's awesome. Well, we'll post the recipe along with the video. Thanks for joining us. This is Dude Food. I'm Mark. This is Ross. We'll see you next time.
We'll see y'all.
There you have it, friends. That's shredded balsamic beef. Hey, if you try this recipe, I would love to know how it works out for you. Drop a comment in the YouTube comment field below. Send me a picture. If you do a different variation of it, let me know how you like it with rice or pasta or sandwiches. Let me know what your family thinks of it. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for being here on Dude Food.